Hi, this is Jay. Welcome to my channel. Today I thought I'd give you a quick overview of the refrigerator that I've been using in my car. I've been using it for, well, according to my solar panel or my solar charge control, I've been using it for over 400 days. It's a 12/24 volt supposedly, but I use it with 12 volt DC power. It's a little 22-liter refrigerator. It's about 20 quarts. It's not very big, but it's not meant to. It's supposed to be as much as you really need, because in a car everything should be optimal. You shouldn't have a refrigerator that's too big or maybe too small. Although if it's too small, you kind of learn to live with it and you know what to buy. Kind of limits you on your shopping trips, but it's kind of nice because you only buy so much. Now, this model is the Alpicool 22-liter. The most important things, of course, is the size, how it fits into your plan of where you're going to put it. Some people put this model in the middle of the back seats or middle of the front seats if your car can do it. Of course, my car, the front seats, center console are all stuck in there, so I couldn't remove any of that. So I put it behind the driver's seat, just on the bottom, on top of a little toolbox. And from there I can actually open it and get to everything. And because my batteries are behind the passenger seat just on the side, I could actually run a little 12 volt adapter to it from the charge controller. I like doing that because every time it runs, the charge controller records how much power it uses throughout the day. So at the end of the day, I can get a report of how much power it used, and so it gives me an idea of how much I need basically to run it all the time. Now this model here, a lot of people looking for a fridge may not know all the math behind, like amp, volts, watt hours, but I believe it's crucial so you kind of plan out your power supply. Like this refrigerator, it varies. People ask like how much wattage it uses, but when it's running, it could use 39 watts up to 44 watts I found, or oftentimes about 35 as it's running. But of course, a refrigerator does not run all the time. So if it's running, I estimate it to be about a third of the time it's running. So if it's running about 36 watts, it's using about 12 watts, because it's only running a third of the time, 12 watts per hour. And that is actually, the power consumption is 12 watt hours. So over 24 hours, spread out evenly, of course it doesn't work out evenly, it can use 24 times 12, which should be about 288 watt hours over a 24-hour period. So your solar panel needs to be able to produce at least that much. Now, of course, there are just tons of things involved in this, because if it's freezing out all the time, it runs barely at all. Like last year in the wintertime, maybe got 50 watt hours to 100 watt hours over a 24-hour period. But of course, when it's super hot out, it runs much more often. And I've actually had it pushed well over 300, 350 watt hours over a 24-hour period. So your solar needs to be able to at least make up that much to be able to run all the time. And I believe you should always try to have 3 times the capacity. So your battery bank should have not only 300 watt hours, but it should have at least 900. So if you have one good day and you have 2 cloudy days, you can still have enough power to run your refrigerator for 3 days. The big risk, of course, is if you run out of power, anything in there that needs to be cooled spoils, and it's just a waste of money and waste of food, really, so you don't want to do that. So that's why I have about 1200 watt hours of power. I estimate my batteries are a little weaker now, so it's about 1000 watt hours, so that's good enough. And I try to park in the shade if I can. Parking in the shade keeps your vehicle cooler, which helps keep your refrigerator from running as much. Of course, fans to vent the air to keep the inside cool also helps keeping it from running too much. But again, all those factors weigh into how much power you're going to need to run it. If you have, say, one of those little 400 watt hour, you might get a whole day with it, but the problem is that next day you're going to need at least 400 watt hours of solar panel production to charge that completely to run it for the next 24-hour cycle. And of course, you never know what the day's gonna be like. Like today has been perfectly clear and sunny here at Bighorn. Look at those mountains, national forest. But the last 2 days it was raining like crazy and I barely produced any power. And that's why today I actually produced so far over 680 watt hours, but I've only used about 180 because it was really cool last night, so that helped keep it from running too much. So that's about 500 watt hours that it made up that was lagging behind and finally caught up to top it off. So now I know I can go another couple of days. So I can drive around and look for any campsite. The campsite's sun isn't as important. Although, if you find a campsite and it's really shaded, I run a cable to have a separate solar panel away from the car. So overall, the Alpicool 22 liter has been working out for me really well. Again, it's gonna be different for everybody. So you have to take in all these factors, how much food that you need refrigerated and everything else into effect. Last year, Tina and I actually lived out of the car for 3 weeks and the refrigerator was enough for both of us. So as long as you think it through well enough, 22 liters should be no problem for one person easily, 2 people maybe for a while. Another thing to think about with any refrigerator really or freezer is the more things you have in it, it creates a thermal mass. So the more things you have in there, it keeps it cooler, so it won't run as often. It will get warmer slower. If you only have a few things in there, there's all this air and it'll actually get warmer quicker and it'll run more often. So the more things you have in there, the less often it'll run. So oftentimes, yeah, it doesn't make sense to put warm water bottles in there, but if you do, once it gets cool, it will actually keep it from running as often. So it's not draining your batteries as much. And other thing good about that is you always have cold water with you. Another bit of advice about the refrigerator is you have to do what you can, anything you can to keep the interior of the car cool or not super hot. So you don't want to keep all the windows closed if you're parked somewhere overnight or something like that, because that's all that hot air from the refrigerator is just going to overheat your car and it's going to make it run more often, which will eventually kill the compressor. So I always crack the windows a little, and even when I walked around earlier today I cracked it, but I had a fan running as well to try to blow hot air out, to try to keep the air vented. So it's important to keep good ventilation just to keep the car cool. You want to help your refrigerator work for you. You don't want all your gear to, you don't want to have the mentality that they're there for you. You want to help it so it lasts a long time, so it serves you. Kind of everything just works together. Does that sound weird? Now the reason I went with the Alpicool was purely price. The Domestics in the similar size cost twice as much, sometimes more, and they were always kind of uneven tops unless you got the much bigger one that became more even. I didn't want like weird ledges on top because it's nice having that flat surface, and I think I made the right choice with the Alpicool because it's nice and flat. Some of the Alpicool models in the different sizes have weird tops as well because it's like flat and it'll come up and then down. So I chose the one that's flat, and it's nice having a flat surface because you can kind of use it as a little table of sorts. Now, some people said that it's tempting to sit on it, but if you have it outside of your car or something, I would definitely not sit on it. It's very light. It's not like steel reinforced. It seems like it's just kind of plastic and foam inside, but it's nice because it makes it really light, but don't sit on it. Now the Alpicool refrigerators, at least this one especially, has a low voltage cutoff. It says it's to protect the car battery, because I guess some people are tempted, well, I guess a lot of people are tempted to just plug it into a 12-volt cigarette adapter, which it comes with. And if you do that, it uses the car battery. Unless you have the car running, it's going to drain that battery. The problem is most car batteries are made for cranking amps. So it's made to put out high amperage suddenly. It's not made to run gradually throughout and then wear down. So the problem is if you keep using something like this with a car battery, you're going to reduce its lifespan and you're going to have to get a new one pretty quickly. It's not very good for that. Now you're supposed to use marine batteries, and they call it marine batteries because boaters, they use it for like trolling motors, which run little motors, so it's real quiet. So those are what you want. Like in the car, I have AGM lead acid batteries, and those suit the purpose. The Alpicool's low voltage cutoff is still very good because even with the marine batteries, like the AGM batteries, you're only supposed to drain it halfway. If you drain it lower than that too often, you reduce the life of the batteries as well. So it's good that it cuts it off. In my case, I mean, it's useful if you don't have any other way to cut it off. In my case, I have the charge controller supplying the load for the refrigerator, and that will automatically cut off the load once it gets to a low battery threshold, which I can set. So I can use that, and the battery or the refrigerator has its own cutoff. So I have kind of like a redundant cutoff so it doesn't drain the batteries too much. All right, so let's get to the car and show you what I have inside there at this moment, as well as some of the exterior features. I'm not going to pull it out or anything. I'll just show you as is and the placement in the car. So this is the top of my refrigerator. It's behind the driver's side seat. I'm going to open it up and show you all the contents. Now, the cool thing about this little thing is there is a little light that turns on right here when you open the door, so you can actually see everything even in the dark. Now this, I like my milk, so I have 2 bottles of lactate milk. This is tall enough that you can fit one of these half gallons perfectly. There's maybe a centimeter left. I also have creamer. Fits one of these very well. It's just tall enough for that. It fits 16-ounce sodas just fine. And it's actually been designed really well to fit these 12-ounce soda cans. You can fit 2 stacked on top of each other, and you can fit up to 30 in here. It's really optimized for that. It's actually really nice. One time I did trail angeling, and I was able to just put a ton of sodas in here and just kind of pull the ones from the bottom because they generally get colder, and it worked out really well. So right now I just have basically a gallon of milk, some cheese here because there's a little bit of space here. There's 2 creamers because this one is out. Some sodas, butter, bag of carrots. Generally, when I buy anything, I'll put it in these quart Ziploc bags because they're a lot more durable than the bags that normally come in. And these also zip up more reliably than the other ones because when it leaks, it'd be a mess. So I like to do this. Also, these quart bags are a little bigger. So when the refrigerator is full, it's nice that you can kind of level it out and form it to whatever gaps you have left. And that's about it. Right now it's pretty empty. Well, it's half empty, I'd say. There was a lot more in there. I had more cans of soda as well as a bag of cherries and more carrots. But I do like my fresh vegetables and carrots. Sure, you're living out of your car, but I think it's really important that you eat a lot of fresh food as well to keep up your health, because generally it's not the healthiest living out of your car. Now the top of this lid has a little seal on it, and it closes down pretty well, nice and snugly. And when you're not using it, this actually works out as a table, so it's pretty nice and smooth. Empty, it's very light and works out really well. Also inside the fridge, on the right here, there's an ice cube tray. I never really use it because when it's against the back seat of the car, I can't open it. And it's basically a metal tin that you put water in. The only problem is if you can't open this lid all the way, you have to tilt it to get it in. And all that water's gonna just leak out as you do that. So I never really use it. I'm thinking about buying some of those flavor ice packets and pushing them in there. I think I could get 2 or 3 in there. I'm not sure how. I'll have to measure how long it is. But then I can have flavor ice, frozen juices. So that'd be pretty nice, I think. So I'm gonna do that sometime. So on the right side of the refrigerator here, there's actually a little thermostat. This is how cold it is inside. And you can actually take this down to 0 degrees Fahrenheit if you want and use this as a freezer. But I generally don't because everything will freeze in there if you do that. And there's a power button, setting button, buttons to control the temperature, and a lock. And that lock is in case you do this. Nothing happens until you hold that lock for several seconds. And it also comes with a little USB port here, Originally, I never thought I would use it, but I actually use this guy all the time because it's so convenient being right there and always plugged in. It's also only 1 amp, so it's not the fastest charger. Most chargers are 2 amps or 2.4, but this is just 1 amp, so you only get 5 watts of charging power, but better than nothing usually. On the very bottom right corner of this refrigerator, there's actually vents here that's air drawing in, so you want to keep that as clear as you can. I have this fire extinguisher here and the head is narrower, so it leaves enough room, and the vent out is actually on the other side, on the right side of the refrigerator. And I have this wooden panel here, that way the air hits that and directs it straight up, and this also prevents me from putting anything in front of it by mistake because it's lodged in the bottom, and I keep things to the right here. Well, I hope you enjoyed this little quick discussion about the refrigerator I'm using and how much I can put in it. In the description, I'll put in the dimensions of the insides as well as outside, because I can just ramble it off, but for you to get a record of it, it's better if it's in the description. Or if you go to like Amazon, you can go to the to the object, and you can actually see the dimensions listed in there in the item pictures. I'll put a product link in the description below for the refrigerator I'm getting. It's not for everyone, so I wouldn't recommend just going out and buying it or anything like that. You have to decide what you need, how much space you want, how many people will you be using it, how big the exterior dimensions are, so you can decide where you're going to put it, as well as your power source for it. Because again, it could be anywhere from 100 watt hours to 300 watt hours, and you need to be able to supply that over at least 2 days, I would say, at least 2 days, and have enough solar production to be able to recharge the batteries for at least all that time. Well, thanks for watching, everyone, and I hope you got something out of this. I know before I was looking at refrigerators, I couldn't find video reviews of things at all, and it was very hard to decide which one to get. So I hope you can kind of get an idea from this. It's nice having real-world objects inside it to kind of help you decide whether it's going to work out or not. Other than that, it's really a matter of just kind of playing Tetris and just getting it all in there when you can. And yeah, so if you get it, I hope you enjoy it. If you have it, comment below and tell me how you like it. If you have any other Alpicool model, it'd be nice to hear about it as well. So far, this one, it's been doing really well. Some of the older models, I guess, were having a problem where they were just running away and it would just freeze everything inside. But I haven't had that problem yet, so not a big deal. And as far as the noise, it does make some noise when it runs. Like when I was recording in there, I actually turned off recording every time it ran because there's a slight hum sound. And I remember the second night in the car, I remember waking up. That was the first night I had the refrigerator plugged in. I remember waking up going, who's running a generator out here? Because it would just turn on and off all night. It sounded like a generator really far away. And now I'm kind of used to it. It's not bad at all. It doesn't really run that often, so it's not too bad. But again, if you got anything out of it, please like and subscribe below, and I will talk to you later from Bighorn National Forest.